sometimes I have clients in my office and they want to break the cycle. They want to understand how to end this generational curse, right? And they get so caught up in it and it gets them so anxious, right? And I have to explain that this is something that took generations to make. So it's not going to take one session, two sessions, three sessions to break. So, how can we kind of challenge that all or nothing thinking so that we feel more at peace with the progress that we're making, even if it's not as fast as we'd like for it to be?
Yeah, of course we want to get to particular outcomes as quickly as possible, right? Because the idea that I can break this curse or whatever language we want to use is the belief that I'm going to experience relief. And I think sometimes we jump to the end and forget that relief actually happens in stages. I think about like one small shift that someone makes, or even for me, I think about like the first time I noticed myself pivoting and I did something different. I'll give a really quick example. I was, in a relationship in my late 20s. And I really thought that this was the one. And his ex came back into the picture. She wanted to be back with him. And he was trying to decide whether or not to go back in the relationship with her or stay in the relationship with me. And therapist me, needless child, Vienna, needless woman, Vienna, like, I'm okay, I'm unaffected, I'm bothered, I'm fine, I'm the cool girl, presented in that moment was like, totally understand, I got it, of course, take all the time that you need. And I was pretending I was fine, I was pretending all was okay, I was unaffected, and I was actually being deeply affected. I was so affected. And I realized it took a little bit of time, but I realized that I was in the role as a woman, as I was as a little girl who was going through this divorce and seeing that there was so much chaos and so much conflict and so much trouble with my parents. And I didn't feel like that there was space for me. Never felt like there was space for me to not be okay. And boom, there it was, right? I had to name it. I had to witness, and I had to really allow the grieving to come, which was the authentic expression of the emotion that was there when I finally witnessed this. And I remember for the first time, I picked up the phone, I called him and I said, I'm actually not okay. I don't feel respected here. I'm not okay with what's going on. These boundaries are being crossed. And so I'm going to remove myself from the equation. For somebody who doesn't have a problem expressing themselves, they're like, yeah, what's the big deal? For me, or for anybody who knows what it like, that we hide how we feel, that we pretend to be fine, that we're the people pleaser, that we're constantly protecting everybody else's emotional experience over our own. That moment was a life-changing moment. It's not hyperbolic. That was a huge life-changing moment. And guess what? It didn't come with a mic drop after it. I wasn't some empowered woman after it. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I did the thing. No, I was like curled up in a ball on the bathroom floor, was in my bed. Like it sucked. It sucked. And I think sometimes it's this idea that like, oh, the healing is going to be these mic drop moments. I'm going to feel so empowered. It's going to be this incredible thing. And it's not that. It's these micro moments along the way where we do something different than we've done it before. That's it. We acknowledge something that we wouldn't have acknowledged before. We express something that we wouldn't have expressed before. It's these little moments where we pivot and we do something different. We jump off the tracks and we create a new set of tracks for ourselves. And it's hard. It's not easy. It is hard, but that is healing. That's healing. And guess what? You know what else is healing? Going backwards sometimes, but acknowledging that you went backwards faster than you would have acknowledged it before. That's healing too, right? So this idea, we've heard it before, right? That like healing is not linear. We all know that. But the experience of it, right? That like, oh shit, like it doesn't look this way and it's not glamorous. And I'm not just going to arrive at the end. When people ask us like, is there an end? We're like, there isn't. They're like, it's like, no, because different stages of life, right? Different chapters of life put us face to face with something new, something different that's going to need a different version of resolution. And that part is so important. Is like, yeah, when we're 70, 80, when we're losing friends, when mortality is around us in a different way, like you're just going to come face to face with things that need our healing in a different way. And so patience, but also allowing yourself to see your growth and your evolution differently than you want it to look or expect it to look. Or you have to look in the nooks and the crannies of our lives, and you have to give space for any little micro changes that happen to be celebrated, even if you don't feel so great on the other side of it, right? But it's like to acknowledge that and see that. And so I think the example that I gave about my own story is a really good example of that, because I felt lousy. I was like, oh, like kind of hope he comes back around. There was a period of time, right? Like it wasn't this deeply empowered state. And so that's what I would say to people is, to remember that it's not linear, to celebrate these tiny little movements and to look for the growth in ways that you don't think it's going to look.
And sometimes you see a pattern within a pattern, right? Sometimes a person won't celebrate even the little wins because there was an overlying pattern of maybe in their home as children or with their parents, they had to do great things to be acknowledged. They had to go above and beyond to get praise, and anything less than the best wasn't good enough, right? And so sometimes you find these patterns within patterns, and it's an opportunity to learn from, that dissatisfaction that you feel even when you're making a little bit of progress, because in therapy, a little bit of progress is still great. It's still
huge.
Great. That's what we look for.
Yeah.
We look at the standstills, we look at the regressions, and we also look at the little bit of progress. So we have to celebrate that.